Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 113. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. What exactly is a birth plan? And what should you know about pregnancy and birth? Have you considered taking a birth preparation course? Our next guest, Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a board-certified OBGYN physician and certified integrative health coach, is here to talk to us about one of the most important moments in a life of an expectant mom. Hi, Dr. Nicole.
Hey, Frances. Thank you so much for having me here. And Nicole is just fine.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. You know what? I've given our audience such a brief bio about you. Why don't you fill in the blanks and share with us what you'd like for them to know about your business and yourself?
Sure. So I am an OBGYN physician, and more specifically, I'm an OBGYN hospitalist. So all I do is work in the hospital on labor and delivery. So 99% of what I do is deliver babies. It's a fairly new concept in the last maybe 10 years or so, where obstetricians just work in the hospital. So I don't have my own practice. I just work on labor and delivery, delivering whatever patients are there during the time that I'm there. And then I also have an online course to help women get prepared for birth. And I have a podcast with information to help women about pregnancy and childbirth.
So, Nicole, why don't you tell us about your podcast, and for those that are interested, how they can listen to your podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast is called All About Pregnancy and Birth, and you can find it wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify. And the podcast is a way for me to provide accurate information, reliable information, and also holistic information about pregnancy and childbirth. So I wanted to be a resource for women to provide just good quality and a broader approach as opposed to just a medical approach to pregnancy and birth. And I do that through, and I just started the podcast, I should say, so I'm about 5 episodes in. And I do that through discussing topics. I also share women's birth stories because I believe women learn from the stories of other women. And I interview expert guests.
Talk about your why. How did you get there in terms of, or specifically for you becoming an OBGYN?
Yeah, so it's been a bit of an evolution for me. So to go way, way back, I actually majored in math and mechanical engineering in college. And I thought I was going to be an engineer. And then kind of little over halfway through getting those degrees, I got an interest my interest was sparked to go to medical school, and I did. So I went to medical school, and in medical school, I thought I was either going to be a general surgeon or an OBGYN. I thought I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to do something that was procedure-based, so I could actually do things like surgeries and procedures and that kind of thing. And I knew I was interested in women's health. So I toyed between either general surgery and OBGYN and went for OBGYN because I felt like it had a broader base of opportunities for me, because you can do lots of things within OBGYN. And interestingly, when I first started out, I thought I was going to be what's called a GYN oncologist, which is a GYN cancer doctor, gynecology cancer doctor. And I totally switched, and now I'm like all the way on the opposite side. And what I do now is deliver babies. So you just kind of never know what twists and turns and paths your life will take.
What was that aha moment for you, Nicole, that you knew that your course was going to be successful, or really the need for your specific course? And if you need to back up your story, because you and I talked a little bit about that for the audience, that's fine too.
Yeah, so we in a lot of ways are failing women with the way that we provide care during pregnancy and childbirth. And we haven't necessarily been giving them the experience they deserve and really elevating this special moment and giving it the attention that it deserves. So women have been looking elsewhere. They're looking online. They're looking at Google. They're thinking about home births. They're wanting to turn away from traditional medical care because we haven't been serving them. And that's a shame. And it doesn't have to be that way. So I really started out feeling like there was a lot of information online that was kind of outside of traditional medical care. And although most women actually still do go to the doctor for their prenatal care, so I wanted to be a source of showing that, hey, there are doctors out here who support women, who want you to have the birth that you desire, who want you to be safe, who want you to be happy with everything, and approach pregnancy and birth as the normal and natural process that it is. So I wanted to be able to put more of a front face to that. So initially it started out with thinking, well, let me do a blog, or let me see how that goes, or let me post on social media. So this has definitely been an evolution for me to get to where I am now. And then as I kept thinking about, well, what are ways that I can help women and reach as many women as possible, the idea of a course came up, and an online course in particular, because in today's world, women are about doing things when it's convenient for them. And online, of course, does that. And then also just being able to provide like up-to-date evidence. And I wanted to kind of step back and be this source in place that they could get good, reliable information to support them having a birth in the hospital and a great experience giving birth in the hospital. So that's kind of the idea of the course. And then things have been built around that. Like I also have a free mini course on how to make a birth plan. I do things on social media and then like the podcast, like I said.
That's pretty amazing, because I think about how things, when you talk about evolution and how things have evolved. And I remember it seems like many moons ago when I had my child, and I remember my girlfriend, she and her husband, they wanted to have that kind of experience that you were chatting about. And so they had of course, California being very progressive in a lot of their birthing techniques and things that they allow. And they had the champagne, and some of them wanted to be underwater. And we were having our kids like, I think 8 months apart. And I was more like, okay, I just want to have the baby. I wasn't into any of that. It was a really very painful, that's in my mind, I'm always thinking about, it was just very painful. So to have that experience, and I was reading online recently, I believe it's 3 states that just approve for, I think, midwives to come in and have and to assist with babies. So that's back in what used to happen like way back in the day.
Yeah, and I actually work with midwives. So I work in a unique circumstance. I'm an OB hospitalist, and I work with midwife hospitalists who are just in the hospital as midwives. And we have a very great collaborative relationship together. And that's how it should be, actually, between midwives and OBGYNs, and that we should all work together in order to provide the best care that we can for women. I come from this job from a place of service. That is my purpose, is to be of service. And so I'm willing, and we should all be willing, to work with different members of the team in order to accomplish that and have healthy moms, healthy babies at the end of the day.
So why would someone elect to have a midwife? What is the purpose of that?
So midwives are experts in low-risk pregnancy. And since most women are actually low risk, then midwives can care for most women during pregnancy. And when you do some research in terms of pregnancy care models outside of the U.S., actually midwives care for and deliver most women, and women only see an obstetrician or a physician if there's problems. The United States is the one country that's different than that. So midwives do very well in low risk, uncomplicated pregnancy and birth. They often have more time to devote to women and longer appointment, and they can often be more patient with the process of birth.
Thank you for that. Nicole, tell us what you are most grateful for now in your life.
Oh, that's a good question. I think I'm just grateful for I have a tremendous support system around me. I have a wonderful, supportive husband. We've been married for 13 years. His name is Falcon, like the bird. And I have my parents and my mother-in-law. I just have a lot of support around me. And that helps we have 2 daughters also who are they're 9 and 11, and they keep us on our toes every day. But I have a lot of love and support, and that helps to give me the drive and the courage to go after the things that I want to do. Because this path that I'm doing of this online course and social media and podcasts are not traditional things that physicians do, nor is it something that I necessarily where I thought I would be. So having that system of support just helps. I'm grateful for that to help me really be my best self, live my best life, and step out on faith with the things that I want to do.
And you talked about you had 2 children. Did you go traditional, or did you go midwife, or did you use any of the things that you talk about in your course that made your pregnancy unique or different?
Yeah, I actually just recorded an episode for my podcast talking about my birth stories, and they were actually, especially the first one, not very traditional. My older daughter, she's now 11, she was born 8 weeks early, and she had an intestinal malformation, something called duodenal atresia. It only affects about 1 in 5,000 to 1 in 10,000 pregnancies. And it was a circumstance where the first part of her intestines were not connected to the latter part. So it was like she was swallowing amniotic fluid. Babies all swallow amniotic fluid, but it couldn't go anywhere, it just kind of stayed in her stomach. So I had extra fluid around, and it was just a bit of a stressful pregnancy. Me being type A, and I was anxious, and it was a little bit hard for me. So I was seeing physicians during that pregnancy, went into labor early, delivered early by C-section because her heart rate dropped. And during my C-section, I actually did not have adequate anesthesia. And I don't want to torture anybody with the story of it, but needless to say, it was painful, and I could feel what they were doing. It has changed the way that I practice today. If a woman is saying that she feels something or she's hurting, I hard stop a procedure until she, is not in pain anymore. That's how much it affected me. And she spent a month in the NICU, and that's also a long story, long process. She's doing great now, and eventually she did just fine, and she's perfectly healthy. She's a year ahead in school and all those good, great things. But that was a very difficult time for me. And my second pregnancy, I was with physicians again, and this one was much, much less stressful. And I decided to have a repeat cesarean section, and it was a totally different experience.
So going through that with your first, it didn't scare you guys from not wanting to have other children? Were you really cautious about that, or you just moved straight ahead?
Yeah, that's a great question. It certainly could have gone that way, but honestly for me, I think by the time, they're 2 years apart, so by the time I got pregnant with the second one, we had gone through the NICU, and she was doing well. So she was meeting milestones, she was growing. And I think we felt like, okay, we weathered a big deal, and we've come through on the other side, and we're okay, and our daughter is okay. So we felt like we can pretty much handle just about anything that comes our way if we've gone through that experience again. And we knew we wanted another child. So I was actually not at all anxious my second pregnancy. I was very much more low key about things, and comfortable and calm about things.
Nicole, can you tell us a problem that exists in the world today that you'd like to solve?
I would love to help transform the way that women are receiving care during pregnancy and in the hospital for their birth. There are lots of people working on this issue, but just making sure that we're approaching pregnancy and childbirth by putting the mom at the center of the process. That means being attentive to her need. That means answering her questions, just really focusing on her, not just during pregnancy and birth, but also in the postpartum period. In many ways, I hate to say abandon, but it's like, hey, see you for your 6-week checkup. And we don't really touch bases with women enough to really care for them during pregnancy and birth and the postpartum period. So really just helping to transform the way that we care for women surrounding pregnancy.
Thank you for that. What are you reading now?
So I just finished reading Becoming by Michelle Obama. And I also just finished reading An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And now I'm getting ready to start Educated, which is another, it's a nonfiction book. I basically just took President Obama's book list that he put out and decided that I was going to pick a few books from there and read them. I recently started reading again because I love to read. It's been something that I love to do, and I had kind of fallen away from it. So I've gotten committed back to reading.
And from either of the books that you've recently finished, what's a takeaway that you'd like to share with our audience?
I think with Michelle Obama's book, one thing that I really found enlightening was just her story of where she started from and where she ended up, and just the possibilities of what can happen for you when you remain open to things are just phenomenal. So if you just follow your heart and just give your best effort, I guess, to say, there's really no limit to what you can do. And just following the path of life and the surprises and twists and turns that it can take is just truly a magnificent journey.
Can you share the one word that would define who you are?
Oh, for sure, that's service. My purpose, I am very clear, my purpose is to be of service.
So, Nicole, talk about your legacy. When it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone who supported women, who advocated for women and their health in a comprehensive, holistic way. So not just the medical piece, but also their emotional health, also their spiritual health, also their relationships. So really just being an advocate for helping women to live their best, healthy lives.
So talk about self-care and give us your tips and strategies for your personal self-care.
Yeah, so this is something that has been an evolution for me. And I'm in a place now that, 10 years ago, I never would have thought I would be. So a big part of my self-care is meditation. So in the past, I would say 6 years, I've been meditating regularly. So I meditate, it depends on my schedule, but anywhere from 4 to 5 days a week, just 10 or 15 minutes at a time, first thing in the morning to start off my day. And I have found that it has made such a tremendous difference in how I approach the day, how I'm able to go through the day. People think meditation turns you into this Zen kind of person. That's not really what meditation does. But what it does is it helps you not to get caught up in the moment, or if you get angry, you can get out of that state quicker. So I think it helps to keep you at a baseline, just more calm, peaceful state. So meditation is a big part of my self-care. And then in the last year, I've also started doing yoga. I am not a huge fan, I will admit that exercise is just not one of my favorite things. And I've struggled to find, but I know it's important, and I've struggled to find something that really works for me, that I enjoy and that I can do consistently. And about a year ago, I started doing, not even a year ago, maybe 6-7 months ago, I started doing YouTube videos of yoga, and I just fell in love with it. So I do yoga 4 to 5 times a week, and that's either alternate between power yoga, strength, flexibility, and I really enjoy it, and that also helps me to take care of myself. And other self-care is at night. I kind of have a wind down routine where I think about what I'm going to do for the next day and just kind of bring it, just kind of reset and focus. And I also think of some things that I'm grateful for during the day. So those are some things that help to keep me healthy, both physically and mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
Now, have you tried the hot yoga?
I have not. I've heard people try that. I don't know anything about it. Have you done hot yoga?
Yeah, and I was going to say, now I've done yoga, and I am a person who absolutely love working out. I've been working out for over 40 plus years, and I start my day besides prayer and meditation. I go to the gym, so I have a 5 a.m. Session that a buddy, we pair up and work out. But I've done yoga and in different forms, the Pilates type and regular. I'm not a yoga person per se. I love to dance. I like a lot more movement and action, more of the aerobics type. But yoga is definitely excellent as we age for stretching. And out of the yoga, I loved the hot yoga. Now, the only thing that I couldn't deal with the hot yoga was the smell. And so even though I did a 4:00 in the morning hot yoga class, so meaning I would get there before, because they would have like a class every hour on the hour with like a half an hour break. And so I'm saying that to say that I would get there before all the sweat throughout the day.
Gotcha.
But because of the way it is, and other people, they can get around it. And another person is it. Plus, like to do the individual classes, it can get quite costly. And it's something that for me, you'd want to do 3 times a week. But you totally forget everything. Like you cannot think about anything when you're there, and you are like just detoxing everything out of your body. So yeah, I really enjoy it. I like I said, the only thing for me was the odor, and I would try to put on my mat like some little downy papers to try to keep my nose from not focusing on all the odors in there. But I'm very sensitive to smells, and I'm like, no, we just can't do the funk. So, but it's a wonderful exercise. So yeah. So yeah, if you ever get an opportunity and you do it, you'll have to let us know.
For sure. Sure.
So what do you do, Nicole, when you hit a bump in the road? How do you adjust and reset?
That is a great question. I have to just stop. And sometimes I have to put things aside and just not think about it for a little bit so I don't get myself kind of worked up. But usually I just need to stop and pause. And the first thing I tell myself is that it's going to be okay. You can figure this out. So once I start from that place of, even though a situation is very difficult, just start with saying it's going to be okay. You can figure it out, and then just taking it from there.
What milestone do you want to accomplish for your business over the next couple of years?
I would like to get to a point where I am enrolling somewhere, at least I want to say 100 women each month in my course. That would be an ideal goal for me. And then also I would say for my podcast, just to experience more growth each month, increase the number of subscribers, downloads, that kind of thing.
And are you doing any kind of marketing for either?
Yeah, I do Facebook ads, mostly. Facebook and Instagram ads are the 2 places where I market the most. And then some local things. I've been invited to some local events to speak that are coming up in the next few months. It seems that and I don't know if you've noticed a similar thing, but I used to have a blog, and now having a podcast seems to have widened my circle of people finding me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's interesting that you would say that, because in a couple of groups that I'm in, we were talking about how the algorithm has changed immensely with Facebook. And so if you're an internet marketer and I'm just throwing that out there to people in the audience, where something you may have done, say 6 or 8 months ago, that same strategy is not going to work to yield you the same results, right? And so being on this whole internet online marketing space for about 4 or 5 years, I noticed that the blog was a big thing to get you to that influencer status. And now that has changed completely, where, like you said, podcast is giving you, elevating your level of influence. And people, I call podcasting like an education on steroids. I absolutely love podcasts and listen to them. And the fact that you can, in some regards, listen to it uninterrupted without a lot of commercials. So exactly. I agree with you 100%.
And I think the other thing about podcasting is that it makes people feel somehow more connected a little bit because they're hearing your voice. And in the age of social media where there's a lot of texting, or even people hardly ever even talk on the phone anymore, right. I feel like podcasting is a way that, whether people realize it overtly or not, if connecting with other people.
And you know, Nicole, I didn't look at it that way, but it is absolutely, because even with friends, and a lot of us in my circle, we're boomers, but I'm noticing that even with my friends, because they have millennial children, they're constantly texting and they want to have conversations via text. Yes. And for me, I just think that it's such a waste of time, but that's just where we're at. So I think that was a great observation about why I believe podcasting is so popular.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Talk about your worst moment in business and tell us about it and what was the takeaway.
My worst moment, I don't know if it's necessarily in business. I would have to say my career in general, I guess, was when I worked at an institution and had a meeting with my chairman, and he said that I was at risk of being fired. And because I was hired, a little bit of a backstory. Before I do what I did, before I took the job where I'm at OB hospitals now, I was in academic medicine. I had initially thought I was going to do kind of research, and that turned out not to be the best use of my talents. So I had been hired in an academic position to do research, and it wasn't going well. And this was the first time that I had ever, and I'm a type A, like high achiever, grades, top of the class, get things that I want, all those kinds of things. And that like smacked me in the face. Like I left that meeting in tears, like devastated, feeling like I was in some sort of twilight zone because I had never not really accomplished something before. So I just had to dust myself off and decide that I could do something different. And that's when I made the transition from academic medicine to what I do now as an OB hospitalist. And it turns out it was one of the best things that ever happened to me because I love what I do now. I absolutely love being with women during their birth and being able to help them have the birth experience that they want, or being able to help comfort them and put them at ease during what can sometimes be a challenging time. So it ended up being a great thing, but at the time it was very painful and took some time for me to adjust. It came out, and at home I was snappy and I was forgetting things. And so it took a couple months for me to get past that, but I did.
Now, when they called you in, did you immediately resign, or did you immediately start looking for something else, or were you trying to say, I'm going to make this work?
No, I immediately started looking for something else. I knew that I had to get out of that environment, that I needed something different.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for sharing that story. And I was 11 years in academia, and it is a totally different type of beast. And you and I are on the opposite end of the spectrum, where trying to find my footing in the career field all of these years and with the various degrees and all of those stories. And so it had become like kind of like I don't want to say a joke because it's not funny, but for me, like to just quit a job, or if they fired me, it was not a big deal. Like that I had gotten that kind of like callous, I want to say almost like that kind of callous about the whole industry. And so
and being academics is challenging, and it's even more challenging. I'm sure you had the experience where you were one of a handful of Black women or Black people in the environment, and that presents another set of challenges on top of that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so interesting because I'm 18 months out of it. And when someone talks to me about even the thought of going back into academia or teaching or whatever, I just like cringe. Like I don't even want a part of it. So, which is pretty sad because our educational system is so broken.
And that is very true. That's a whole podcast episode.
Right.
Like a whole series in and of itself.
Absolutely. So how do you keep your happiness throughout your journey?
Now, I know, I have a strong faith. I'm not a particularly religious person, but I believe in God, and God has always taken care of me. So when I ask for help and for guidance, it doesn't always come the way I anticipated, but it comes. And that faith has carried me through for sure.
If someone spent a whole day with you, what would they learn?
That's kind of funny because I'm actually sitting here like right now doing this interview in like yoga pants and a t-shirt around the house. So and like my warm fuzzy slippers. That they would learn that my life is really not. It's people tend to think that maybe there's some glamour involved, or especially to being a physician. But my life is just pretty straightforward. You know, I wake up in the morning, I do meditation, prayer, yoga, help get the girls off to school. My husband drives them to school. And then during the day, I'm just at home in my office. And then if I have to go to work, I go to work. Today, I went to the grocery store. I order my groceries online and pick them up at the store. So it's really not like anything particularly sexy or about my life in particular. That it's pretty straightforward.
Nicole, can you tell us one of the most vital, life-changing piece of advice that you could possibly share with us?
I said, don't be afraid to take chances on yourself in particular. It's very easy to decide that you don't do something because it's challenging to do something different or because there's some fear there. But very often fear is there because it's something that's important and it's your body's way of saying, hey, this is an important thing. So just don't be afraid to take chances and be different.
What is something that we should know about your industry or your field that we don't know, but we as consumers should know?
I would say that there are actually a lot of OBGYN doctors out there who practice the kind of supportive medicine that I'm talking about. I think physicians get a bad rap in a lot of ways, and part of that is because we haven't stepped into the online space or any discussions and kind of created a story for ourselves. So people have created our stories for us, and often that ends up being some of the bad stories. But there are lots of good, kind, caring, supportive doctors out there. You may have to look a little bit to find them, but they're definitely out there.
And, you know, speaking of healthcare and physicians and finding that great professional, it's real interesting because here in Las Vegas, where I reside, there is, and this could be nationwide, but I'm just speaking for our area, there's a shortage of doctors. And I've been here 27 years and the care is not really that stellar. So a lot of people, and we have a lot of transplant people that come into this city from all over because of the cost of living or whatever to retire. And a lot of them will go back to California for their care because of the stigma that is here. And so I mentioned that I did switch from being at the university to my own, operating my own business. And so I had to switch plans. So I had an OBGYN that I've had for, a good 15 plus years. And I switched based on the new health plan that I had. And it was I just hadn't seen this in years. And the room, it must have been like over 100 women in that room waiting.
Oh my gosh.
And I think out of the 100, I want to say like over half was pregnant, right? So I'm way past I'm getting ready to have a baby stage, right? So I just was not accustomed to that. And it was, to me, kind of indicative of it's almost like you have this healthcare plan and you switch to that healthcare plan, which is, you don't want to say the lowest type healthcare, but you're not getting the pick of the litter for doctors, right?
Right.
You have to go within their
network.
Network. So that was really interesting, where I'm accustomed to being the first person in my doctor's office normally, and I'm out in like 20 minutes, right?
Right.
So that was really something. And so I had to wait. Besides getting there, I always get there 40 minutes before my appointment, but I had to wait an hour past that just to see the doctor. So they are constantly, and I understand that that's a problem too, that they're overbooking because
it is.
Yeah.
That was one of the reasons that I left practice, is that I felt like I didn't have control over my schedule. And there would be times when I would have 3 patients scheduled for the same time. And that I can't do that, obviously. And it is so disrespectful to people's time. It's just not right. But it's the reality, unfortunately, of what happens in some places.
And why is that? Why are they overbooking? It's almost like the airlines, they do that.
Money.
Okay.
I'm gonna just be honest. Try to get more people through the door. There is some people may not show up kind of thing, but it really is about revenue.
Nicole, what is the one impact you want this interview to give to our audience today?
I would say knowing that, again, that there are healthcare professionals out there who want to provide good quality care for women. And I hope that I can be a source of the types of questions you can ask and the things that you can do in order to find those providers and also advocate for yourself and your healthcare. A lot of what I talk about in my podcast and through my work is helping women know how to advocate and get the things that they want and that they deserve for their health and their well-being.
If you conducted this interview, what is the one question that you would have asked yourself? And I'd like you to answer that question.
What is one piece of advice that I would give to all pregnant women? And that piece of advice, and it kind of touched on what I just said, is to do not be afraid to stand up for yourself and advocate for yourself. If you can't advocate for yourself, then find a friend or family member who can help advocate for you, because you absolutely deserve the highest quality care possible. And don't be afraid to expect that and get that for yourself.
Thank you. We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Fun Facts Lightning Round. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give us very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Okay. Are you ready for the Fun Facts Lightning Round?
I am indeed.
Nicole, the last movie you saw?
The last movie I saw was Sorry to Bother You, that starred Lakeith Stanfield.
You relaxed doing what?
Sitting on the couch and watching HGTV.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
My favorite, I would say, is Beyonce. Some of it is her music, but a lot of it is because of her work ethic and how she presents herself.
Your favorite dance song?
I'll have to skip that one. I'm not sure. I don't have a favorite dance song. I just kind of turn on any music with a good beat and dance.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
We eat tacos just about once a week in our house. Everybody in our family loves tacos.
And today is Taco Tuesdays in our house.
We are having tacos tonight for dinner, yes.
Your favorite month?
April, May, summer. I would say April just because it's starting to warm up and spring is my favorite season.
Thank you for that. Nicole, thank you again for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience. But before we let you go, could you share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you and your social media handles and any way that they could support your business?
Sure. My website is ncrcoaching.com. That's www.ncrcoaching.com. And there you can find links to my podcast, my free webinar on how to make a birth plan, information about my childbirth education class, which I'm super proud of, and also my social media handles. I'm on Instagram. I'm actually on all of them. Instagram is my favorite social media platform, but I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, as all at Dr. Nicole Rankins.
Nicole, thanks so much. I appreciate you. That's a wrap.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.